This gun weighs over 4 pounds when fully loaded. It has grips so aggressive you couldn't handle them. Seriously, your soft computer hands would be like, ooh. Who would think that spending $4,000 on a gun like this is a good idea? USPSA competitors, that's who. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David, and this is the Masterpiece Arms DS9 LOC, or LOC as we're just gonna call it here, which is purpose-built for USPSA Limited Optics Division. Now this is a new manufacturer 2024 model DS9, and it's not changed significantly, although they've redesigned the gun entirely, so the fit and finish of the guns, while they were very good before, are on a new level. So we'll talk about all that and more. But first, my dad's in the crowd. 2024 is going to be our year, so you must dad harder than you've ever dadded. And to support you in that, what do you call a fly with no wings? A walk. So let's talk about the features of this thing. As I've mentioned, I've previously reviewed the IDPA DS9 Hybrid. That gun is still fantastic. It's in USPSA trim, living in my gun safe. I take it out and shoot matches with it from time to time.
And I bet I got 1,000 rounds.
This gun is pure USPSA goodness because it weighs over 50 ounces unloaded, because it has a stainless grip. As mentioned, the grip is super pokey, and the grip texture, if you're somebody who competes a lot and your hands are pretty calloused from dry fire training and stuff like that, you might be okay with it. It's still probably, if this were my gun and I were training with it with any kind of volume, I would have to get more calloused hands, specifically on the support hand.
This hurts a lot after a while. It's pretty spiky.
The other items that differentiate this from the standard DS9 is it comes with the nitro fin slide stop right out of the box, so it makes a nice thumb rest for your hand, and it also has ambidextrous shielded safeties. These are MPA design. They're not anybody else's safeties. Honestly, quite like the profile. I think they're very nice. Big enough to act as a good ledge for your thumb, but small enough to kind of stay out of the way of your grip, so very nice all around. The other item which you can't see, and because it's not my gun, this is actually Paul, the gentleman gunner's gun that he has graciously loaned to me so I could make this video for you guys. The other item that you can't see is similar to the Infinity guns, is there is a milled trigger bow, and what that means is that the trigger is much more direct with the hammer. Like, it's very difficult to show you on film. The trigger out of the box, like from the factory, comes set up at about 1 pound 10 ounces. On a 57 ounce gun, that's pretty crazy. But the right on the sear, no problem, and then just like no squish or deflection of the trigger bow that you can sometimes feel on 2011s. So it's a very nice 2011 trigger job. The plate that comes with the gun doesn't have the rear sight, and there is obviously a blank plate for the front sight. And kind of the off-the-shelf trim, everything on the gun comes, you know, nitrided black, which is fine with me because it looks, you know, pretty cool. Maybe splash of colors through the trigger bow or magwell or something like that. Off the shelf, they pretty much just come black. You can customize them or whatever. They've got about a 6-month build time approximately, so if you were to do that, there are some places that keep these things in stock, so you can also check there. Let's just stop and talk about the fit and finish on this gun, because it's absolutely absurd. Now, MPAs have always been a great value play that has had like very good fit and finish, but this is just another level. Like, the smoothness when I run the slide is obscene. Like, there is zero hitch, just like an Atlas or an Infinity running back and forth. The actual wiggle when the gun is in battery, there is just the very slightest wiggle on the very front end of the gun, just very slightly. It's super duper well fit. It's one of the more tightly fit guns that I've had come through my hands. What the steel grip really does, though, is create a perfectly balanced gun. Now, I'm not a huge fan of 50+ ounce guns until I shot this gun, and the slow motion footage kind of bears that out. This gun's incredibly stable at speed. It makes shooting at distance, like, the gun just settles in and aims very precisely. It is quite nice. So for a 5-inch gun with a full-length dust cover, I do think probably a steel grip makes the gun balance better, and I think balance is a feature in guns that we're gonna have to pay more attention to as we're building them. The era of the muzzle-heavy kind of droopy guns, I think that's over with, boys. One thing to be thinking about with the aluminum gripped guns is maybe there's alternate magwell materials that can make the gun balance better. Like they come with aluminum magwells, maybe a steel or a brass magwell is the way to play.
I don't know, it just feels very, very stable, and it doesn't dump as much energy in my arms, but the dot lift was a lot more noticeable.
Because it does have the nitro fin as far as aftermarket. Yeah, it's got 2011 mags. You're gonna have to make sure that they fit in the magwell. But as far as holsters are concerned, you're gonna be getting into like a race holster. This is the Hydra P from ghostholsterdirect.com. You can save 10% with Gear Up 10, but other race holster options, double alpha, CR speed, and stuff like that will work with the gun. Downsides, as far as I'm concerned with the gun, there's not a lot, honestly. I think that this is a very well executed 2011 for specifically racing. The downsides, I'd say, is that their optic system doesn't sync the optic low. If you look at kind of the space on the slide between the cowl of the SRO and the, cut, it just kind of rides pretty high. The fact that we're still having to use blank plates for the front sight, I realize that limited is a thing and Masterpiece makes limited guns, but there might be a cool, optic only slide option that they could be able to do where you don't have to deal with that blank plate. And the traction on the grips is honestly a little spiky. I'm not sure if this is the spikiest or if this is a dumbed down version, but I wouldn't be able to take this through a 2-day training class. Just sitting and filming on the range with it, 250, 300 rounds in a session, my hands were like, hey, that's a really spiky gun. So I'd probably want to dumb down the traction on mine just a little bit, but it is a really awesome gun. Does the gun justify the price tag? Well, I'm not aware of any other guns you can get with a steel frame grip for that price. It's not that much more than the aluminum versions of the gun, and it does come with additional options like the shielded safeties and the nitro fin thumb rest. So I think that it probably does. I think it's in a field by itself at the moment because I don't think anybody else is making steel grip guns at that price point. As far as how it shoots, you can see how this gun shoots in a recent video I did comparing it to the LOK Arms Alien. I was really impressed with this gun. This definitely has my attention and is probably, near the top of my list for a limited optics consideration. If you're a well-heeled, dentist or accountant or whatever it is where you can spend that kind of scratch on a competition gun. But realistically, it is a good value for money if you consider just how durable and how long-lasting these 2011s are. It doesn't make sense for just, Johnny who likes to put another $600 gun in his gun safe every year or whatever, but for somebody who's going to go out on the range and compete, put 15 to 25,000 rounds through it per year, this thing's going to hold up to several years of that kind of burn rate in competition shooting. So it's definitely a different lens you have to look through the gun, because at that point, if you make it through 50,000 rounds on the gun, you've spent 15,000 bucks or so with current prices in ammo. So the price kind of makes sense when you look at it through that lens. This gun is absolutely awesome. I would seriously consider it if I was shopping for a limited optics gun, and I was really impressed with how the gun performed. But if you don't want your hand being violated by this steel grip monstrosity, you might be interested in this video on the DS9 Hybrid IDPA compliant that I did.